I'm Andrew Southworth, and this is my point 4 cents.
I'm Matt Bacon.
I'm Jesse Cannon.
And I'm Dustin Boyer, and this week we're talking about Spotify's record-breaking payouts. And I'm excited this week to get to talk to my friend Maddie Elise, who runs a marketing agency out of LA called Shark Attack. She also works with 19 Entertainment, who famously is the label behind American Idol, which is a super interesting conversation because we get into what it's like marketing artists who've already been exposed to millions of potential fans. And we also get into some of the myths and rumors about what it's like being on those shows and afterwards.
Then after the break, we're going to talk about how you get fans to own your songs. And then behind our membership paywall, we have a viral ad formula that we're going to discuss and break down if it really does work to make your songs go viral. And we're going to talk about how does running automated ads compare to doing it manually. So guys, I'm going to read you a tweet from everyone's favorite news source, or at least mine, Popcrave.
I don't even know what that is.
Popcrave is basically like the GOAT pop music news account.
I'm going to give him a follow right now.
Yeah, it's a great follow. It's one of those few news sources that will not really make you mad ever. It'll just give you information. It says Spotify announced it paid out more than $11 billion to the music industry in 2025. The company also reports there are now more artists generating over $100,000 a year from Spotify alone than were getting stocked on record store shelves at the height of the CD era. Thoughts, feelings, bullshit to call?
First of all, fuck Spotify. No, I'm just kidding. I actually catch a lot of flack because look, I get a lot of the sentiments around Spotify, especially around their CEO's decision to invest in certain other companies. But there is so much misinformation about payouts and royalties, and a lot of it's propagated by famous artists, right? Like they sign deals where they sign over much of their master royalties to a label, and then they're thinking about those master royalties in terms of 90s CD sales. So then when Spotify comes along and they start paying out royalties, and they're not getting paid on that either, they don't understand it's because of their label deal, not because Spotify doesn't pay out. So then they do some interview somewhere where they say, oh, I barely get paid. This is what I get paid. And everybody can't believe it. And it causes so much misinformation. And then when I try to, now it feels like I'm defending myself, but when I try to explain it to artists, they're like, wow, Dustin's a shill. He sucks. So anyways, that's my gripe. I get really frustrated because I think just understanding it first will help address some of your bigger frustrations with Spotify.
To add on to your point, Dustin, just something that I think people don't understand too is the way record deals work. When you're like hot, and this isn't even like super hot. Like if you're like on a label and you're able to get like 100,000 Spotify monthlies and sell like a few thousand units of every record, the label doesn't want you to recoup. They don't want to start paying you royalties, right? What they want is to, like, every time I need $5,000, I can just be like, yo, I need $5,000 for a tour. And they're like, yep, but now we're another $5,000 in debt. And we're paying that back at the royalty rate, not at the rate, the value of the actual revenue generated. Take that as you will.
Well, and it's in their recoupment phase too. So they're even getting paid worse.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is that, like, you don't know how people's deals are structured. Let's all calm down. Because, like, there's a billion different ways deals can be structured, a billion different ways the rights can be split up. You know, maybe songwriters are getting shares. You don't know. So, like, maybe the producer has a bunch of points. If the producer has points, that's going to come out of your chunk.
We're going to see Snoop Dogg saying that on his 1 billion stream song, you only got paid $45,000. And you're like, somebody made 4 million. You got shafted. But like that's not the streaming platform's fault, you know. Every time I talk about something Spotify, it's always like, well, the labels are doing it. It's like, well, yeah, there are bad label deals, but like that's separate from the streaming thing. Most of the artists on streaming platforms are independent, and there's no middleman between them and their distributor and whatever. And usually the distribution deal doesn't take a commission for the vast majority of artists on the platform.
Also, if that label, you know, fronted $1 million that you didn't have on marketing.
Yeah, and like you want that artist to get that. You want the label to get that money because the labels, like, the artist is going to recoup, right? A lot of people are like, oh, this artist isn't getting anything from their label, therefore we shouldn't support anything the artist is doing through the label. It's like, well, how else is the artist going to recoup their deal if you're not buying stuff just because they're signed to the label, right? Helping the label in that case still helps the artist.
my bone to pick and a few to break here are, the statement they have here is like what we call truthiness, where it's true what they're saying, but there's a lot of ways that they're manipulating it. So if you think of it this way, absolutely true. They paid $11 billion to the music industry in 2025. Great. So then the company also reports there are now more artists generating over 100,000 a year from Spotify alone than were getting stocked on record store shelves at the height of the CD era. So now the problem is how do we get to the number of artists that were stocked on the shelves? Is the store small? Is it amoeba? So that becomes like a very easy way to manipulate this data, in that there's a wide variety of what we can say this is. Now, my other complaint is that how far $100,000 goes for an artist compared to 1999. As somebody who was getting paid in the music industry in 1999, your cost of living from everything else that you had to pay was probably literally 2/3 less than it is today. So
That
we
is
could
that
chop
is such a good point.
66,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's chop
Yeah.
$66,000 off that, and then we could say, okay, so a couple hundred to 1,000 artists are getting paid more money than $33,000, basically.
Yeah, they didn't account for
Anytime you
inflation.
see that graph of like streaming music revenue over time over the past like 30 or 40 years, whatever it is, that is the biggest counter argument. Because like recently, the recorded music revenue from like is finally caught up to what it was at the peak of the CD era. So like the streaming like recovered all the money lost from piracy. Finally, it only took 20 years. But then the counter argument is this graph isn't inflation adjusted, which is like, damn.
But here's the other crazy thing I've been learning as I've been making this documentary. Inflation and cost of living are not tied together. They're
Right.
two totally different terms. And that's why we see it, because inflation is not technically 2/3. But with cost of living, we have destroyed rent prices across all of America and much of Europe as well. And then as well, food costs, everything else. It is just ridiculous how much this has gone up. So like, when we're doing the statistical analysis, it's relying a lot on that people aren't going to scratch at it and see that there's a lot of bullshit here.
I have a graphic to show though that actually kind of is a kind of a point for Spotify.
Mhm.
I was trying to dig it up while we were chatting, and I did, thanks to Sam Duboff for sending it to me on Threads at some point. This is the number of recording artists who catalogs generated recording and publishing royalties over $100,000 on Spotify alone for the last 8 years or so. Or this was like from 2017 to 2024. And they haven't published 2025 yet. So like this is how many artists are getting $100,000. And in 2017 is 4,300, and 2024 is 12,000. So like they tripled the amount of artists, and this is all Spotify exclusive, right? So it's like on Spotify in 2017 there were 4,300 artists getting $100,000 from Spotify alone. 2024 it's 12,000. So like they tripled the number of 6-figure Spotify artists in a 7-year period. And that's like when Spotify and other streaming platforms argue like a rising tide lifts all ships, right? Like having more people like going in and having like the whole ecosystem or whole pool lift causes everyone to lift. This is why Spotify and Apple and whatever argue that.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that the price increase is going to really help with this too, that they just put into effect.
Well, and I usually get, because the price increase I think is great. It needs to be much more, in my opinion. I actually believe that if it was adjusted to what it should really be, it would help the industry overall. Yes, less people would probably spend money on streaming, but they might spend more money on other avenues in the music industry, which of course Spotify doesn't want that, and I get that. But what I'm curious, well, you got to take on that before I move on?
I genuinely think like if all streaming platforms went to around $50 a month, I genuinely think the majority of people, when you're looking at your subscriptions, and we all want to cut subscriptions, right? Fine. But I think the majority of people, when they look at their subscriptions, are at some point going to be like, what generates the most entertainment for me?
Mm-hmm.
Like
They'll cut
if
out the
Spotify-
Peacock and Hulu that they barely watch.
yeah, like if Spotify is not your most used paid app, I am very curious what is. And
Well-
is it an app that, Like if a music streaming app isn't your most used app, paid app, I feel like whatever your other app is, like you're either playing way too much shitty mobile games or like watching a ton of Hulu.
For me, like personally, I think my most used like streaming subscription is YouTube by a mile. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that's
So like if I was
the
going
other
down,
one, to be fair. Yes.
and YouTube includes YouTube Music, but like honestly, YouTube Premium I think is such a stupidly good deal that anyone who doesn't have it is a fool, honestly. Because like I mean, if you consume YouTube at scale, like I literally did the math and I was like, even if you're making like $10 an hour, which is under the minimum wage, like I think anywhere in most places in the US at this point, it's still financially worth it to get YouTube Premium and the amount of hours you save of your life and ads per month, at least if you watch YouTube a good amount. But you're right. I think Spotify can justify like a $30+ and all streaming platforms can justify being $30+ a month in terms of how much you use them. Like you typically are going to stream music because like this one platform has the world's music. You need like Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and HBO Max and Paramount and Peacock if you want the full suite of video. And a lot of people have all of those, but then they'll scoff at like, oh, Spotify went up $2 a month.
Interestingly, there's a survey I'm trying to find that they put out of the least killed, I think it was through Rocket Money, of the least killed subscription, and YouTube was only second to Netflix right now.
Yeah. HBO Max I canceled because they raised my rate from like $8 a month, I think it was, to $16 for HBO Max.
And they probably got away with a lot of it.
Honestly, the shittiest streaming service of all of them.
See, the funny thing is Up to Movie. That's my number one that I won't get rid of.
HBO. What do you watch?
We're rewatching Silicon Valley right now. It's what greatest predictor of the future of all time.
We literally
circling back.
The funniest thing last night is, you know what the first scene in Silicon Valley is? People being unenthused about watching Kid Rock, which happened last night too.
It's so true. I forgot about
It's literally the first scene in the show. Yeah. It's the first scene in the show.
Circling back, I think one of the other interesting things about Spotify revenue. What I wanted to say earlier, Jesse, you brought up the point about the cost of living of $100,000 now versus $100,000 in 1999. Okay, agreed. I will say though, I feel like the gap for an artist going from making $33,000 a year to $100,000 a year is much smaller than the gap for an artist making $1,000 a year to $33,000 a year.
Yeah,
like in my experience, it's like it's the 0 to 60 that's hard, not the 60 to 100. I mean, the 60 to 100 is hard, but it's not as hard as like those first steps.
No, the first 10,000 monthly listeners are dramatically harder than 10,000 and 90,000, the 100,000.
I actually tell you, like from a marketing perspective of somebody who's got all gears going, getting from 20 to like 70, that is like where it bounces. And what's crazy, as soon as you get over 100,000 monthly listeners, then you never really fall below it. But then breaking out of 300, that is like the most difficult thing to do. The 300,000 mark is where almost all mid-level artists get stuck. Anyways, just an aside.
No, that's a good point. And the reason, there's a few reasons for that, right? And let's just touch on this real quick. You know, I think a big part of both of those, the 20 to 70 thing and then the 300 plus areas, I feel like a big part of both of those is you're suddenly catering to the next type of fan down the chain. You know, so like 0 to 20K is like super early adopters. 20 to 70K, 20 to 100 is like early adopters who are like hip. And then like once you try to clear 300, that's when you're trying to like get into like a much broader world. And also 300 is also high enough that like to grow that just with ads is a fuckload of money.
Oh yeah, you can't, in my opinion. Like this is completely off topic now, but the only time I've been able to break out into 1 million and 1 million to 10 million is massive amount of touch points everywhere all at once. That's why it's funny to me when people like break down like what is the best strategy, because at a certain point it's all of them at the same time a lot. And so that's why when people talk about like having money, like when do you need a label, it's when you can't risk spending $300,000 to try to push into stardom. Random aside on this whole entire topic, but it's so interesting.
With ads, it's it's like it's super common for artists to get stuck around like 20, 30, 40K
Yep,
and just be
because you
like
can't just
kind of
do it
go
with
up and go
ads.
down. You at some point you need to add
Yeah.
something. And like I know some people who have gone to like 1 million or multiple million and it's pretty much just ads, but for the vast majority of artists, it's like they were doing ads and they were touring and they were collaborating and they were releasing regularly. And then eventually when it made sense, they did this other thing, and did this other thing, and did this other thing.
This is also part of the monetizing Spotify thing, right? Is
Wrap
understanding
it all
that
together, Matt, for us.
everything about becoming a professional artist tends to be a lot of touch points, right? And one of the things that people miss out on, I was talking about this on a consulting call the other day, is that one of the things people miss out on is that if you Spotify is where people are consuming your base product, your music. It is also it's the most used one by a lot, like 90% of the market or whatever. So it's like really the only place the majority of your fans are going to interface with your music. Aside from like maybe some music videos. You can only grow that number after a certain point by doing a high touch, multi whatever type campaign. Okay. But you also can only grow your income if you are attacking it from 12 different angles. There's extremely, extremely few people who are just making a living off Spotify. And I guarantee you pretty much all those 12,500 people who are generating $100,000 in revenue on Spotify are making the majority of their money other places. Be that merch, be that publishing, be that radio, be that whatever. And they all understand that Spotify is two things when you get to a decent level. And really, when I say a decent level, I mean like 100,000 Spotify monthly. So you're getting like $1,000 a month, roughly. It's recurring revenue to like help pay your rent. And it's the chief marketing tool that allows you to sell the stuff that actually makes you money. And I think we just need to realize that, to me, the beauty of Spotify and the beauty of streaming in general is the level of accessibility it provides compared to any other era, which is why I do genuinely believe that, more artists have more opportunities to make more money now than ever before, because it's significantly more accessible. Because to circle all the way back, we're going to have an old guy take here in a second from Jesse. But because I want you to back.
Yeah, I'm the one with old guy takes compared to you.
Well, I need you to back me up because you're like 1 billion years old. Like if this was the 90s and your band was on the level of popularity that a band that has 100,000 Spotify monthlies has now, it would have been exceedingly difficult to buy your CD if you were not like pretty plugged in.
Here's the thing I think about it. It's a little different. So, storied, one of the greatest bands of all time, greatest live band I ever saw in my youth was Fugazi. Fugazi refused to play the MTV game. And the MTV game is what Spotify is today, is that your majority of your discovery and your leads for new fans will probably come from some function of Spotify discoverability or YouTube browse page discoverability. And there were some artists who would not play the MTV and they would not play the music video games. Fugazi famously didn't even play the merch game, and all their merch was bootlegged for things that other people got rich on. But the thing would be is that they would have people like me who would, every time they would play on the East Coast, I would drive for 100 miles, 300 miles sometimes to go see them. I've seen Fugazi in Portland, Maine, and Baltimore, in North Carolina, in DC, in Philly, New Jersey, New York, and it was that thing of that they were good enough to get with it. 99.9999999% of artists do not have that ability to survive without this. And if you don't have Spotify, you've shot yourself in the foot.
God bless and good night.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I think that that's where a lot of my frustration comes from, and a lot of the misunderstanding where people are like, yeah, but Spotify could pay more because Apple pays more. And what they don't understand is, one, the free tier, but two, it gives you so much more accessibility, Jesse, like you were saying, in a way that I think Apple Music and some of these other platforms just don't create that level of discovery. It's extremely valuable in that way. And so it's really frustrating. And then there's this other argument that like I'll hear a lot of like, well, they should pay the employees less, or they should take less profits, or they shouldn't pay the CEO as much, which I looked it up, and the CEO doesn't make anything outside of his own profits from his shares, which you could argue that could go back. And sure, why not? But you know, I guess it's just not how the real world works. And it's frustrating to me that artists themselves will lament this price rise but then simultaneously expect to be paid more. I get really aggravated by it because I want musicians to live in the real world. And I think most musicians who have leveled up and have become a bigger part of the music industry, and they look around and they start understanding the commerce section of their business, they get the real world implications of how this system works and why it works.
I did a Threads post on their price increase, and of course, I got freaking roasted.
Yeah, they hate it,
on
dude.
Threads by
They
musicians.
hate you. They hate me.
And people people are like, musicians are never going to see this price increase. Only the biggest artists on the platform are going to get paid more. Or like, no, that's just going straight to Daniel.
Yeah,
X's
they don't.
pocket.
They
And
don't even. And then you explain it. You're like,
it's-
no, and then they're just like they cover their ears and scream.
Yeah, then they fuck you, poo-poo
Yeah.
head, and then they run away. Or
Fuck
they
you,
block
poo-poo
you
head,
or
and run
whatever.
away.
And it's all the actual artists who were like serious, and an actual artist, all the serious
How dare
artists
you.
who were like, dude, how dare I know. All the artists who were serious understand it. And like, when I say the thing like, oh, Spotify pays out roughly 2/3 to 70% of the money they make to rights holders, and that's industry standard. Like, what about Cobaz? They pay more. It's like, go on Cobaz's website, it literally says we pay out the standard 70% rate. You go to Apple Music, like all these it's public information that Cobaz pays out the same percentage of Spotify.
Yeah, and in fact,
essentially within a couple
the
percent.
best paying platform is Peloton. They pay a shitload. And you know why? Because their subscription prices are crazy high and the amount of music on their platform is
They
very
also
low.
got sued, and they got sued for stealing music, so they got like an especially
Oh,
bad
did they?
deal
I didn't
because
know
of
that part.
Yeah, there's a crazy settlement. Yeah.
But yeah, like that's one reason why they pay well, is because like they charge like $40 a month for their subscription.
But it's still
on top of
70%.
their $2,000.
That's the thing. It's like, and the reason that Spotify is lower is because they make less money per consumer. And so I just want artists to live in the real world, and I want what's best for them. And what's best is that people get used to paying more, so these Spotify can pay out more.
And then we can complain about the things that are real, like maybe we should switch to a user-centric payment model, or maybe Spotify should have a way to let fans collect email addresses, or maybe, et cetera. There's a bunch of real things we can complain about.
If only we had a strong union, and that's all it would really take. If only somebody was making a movie about just this.
I'd probably watch that movie. Today, I get the pleasure of interviewing Maddie Elise. She's a longtime friend of mine. We've known each other, I want to say, 6 years now.
Something like that.
And we've worked together. We've not worked together. We've hung out. We've been through ups and downs. But Maddie, I've always really respected. She has a marketing agency called Shark Attack. And she also works with a fantastic label called 19 that does a lot of really cool work with cool artists that I love a lot. I won't get into the specifics yet because that's what I want to get into. I'm excited for this conversation, Maddie, because I've always really respected your opinion on marketing as a whole. You and I have always had like-minded approaches into just understanding this stuff at such a level that just most people don't. But first, let me get the rundown a little bit more about Shark Attack and what you guys do.
Yeah, so we're a label services company. We work with independents as well as all the way up to major labels. It's a lot of fun. Every project's different. It really depends on what's going on with the artist, what kind of campaigns we're running. But the main goal is to really build real fan bases. It's something that I'm really passionate about. It's something you're really passionate about. We talk about it a lot, and I think it's just so important. Vanity metrics, they're garbage. We need to get rid of them. People need to stop worrying about vanity metrics. Oh my God.
Part of that challenge, and we've talked about this all the time, is, these artists come to you or their teams and they're interested in vanity metrics. And then you have to sell them on yeah, I can do that. But then also you've got to implant this idea of there's more important things. Let me show you,
Dude. I literally just got off a call about how the pre-save is everything. And I'm like, oh my God, it's
Holy cow.
2026.
My head would
Are
explode.
we still talking about this?
You know what I do when they say that? I go, cool. Do you know where to go listen to a song after you pre-save it? if I ask them that question and then they're like, no, and then I'm like, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, why is that so important? That's so wild. What is your answer to that? Like when somebody says that to you?
I literally tell people, okay, so you want someone to pre-save. When you have one ask, you want them to pre-save. So tomorrow, if Spotify and Instagram and TikTok and everything goes away just by random, or it just goes down, you can't reach your fans. And also, you're going to get a royalty rate of 0.00, what is it, 303 versus let me sell you a ticket for $20 or a t-shirt for $25 or a tote bag or yeah, it's just so stupid. I'm so over everyone in this pre-save thing. It's
The pre-save. And then I always get the, yeah, but one time I did it and I got like 5,000 pre-saves. I'm like, and what did you get out of it? So what do you prefer instead then?
data
If
collection,
I'm-
always emails, phone numbers. I believe that if you're going to make one ask, it should be to get people's direct contact. And the reason being is because there is nothing sexier than being able to reach out to a fan and say their name. So they feel like they're
Yeah.
part of their journey.
Yeah, 100%. Do you prefer SMS over email or is it based on the artist?
It's based on the artist. I think younger artists prefer text, SMS, but I feel like older artists still prefer emails. I prefer emails personally. Texts drive me nuts. And I lose it because I get about 3,000 texts a day.
You're a weirdo in that world, though. I feel like those of us, I'm a weirdo too. I get so many texts
Oh,
from
yeah.
artists that I prefer email because I barely get any emails now.
I still get quite a few emails, but like, let's see. My text count right now for today, 726.
Do you even try to catch? I don't even bother trying to catch it up anymore.
Nah.
I'm like, it lives. Mine's at 799. It just lives. I don't even know where all those texts are because I feel like I'm caught up. And it's still like, I don't know. I will tell you this, though. This is really interesting because I run a lot of SMS campaigns for artists. Majority of the signups for SMS right now for these country artists are like 50, 60 years old.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they're engaged. Yeah, it's blowing my mind. I'm like 65-year-old woman signs up and she's like texting the artist and the artist is texting back me. But it's yeah, it's totally surprising me that like that those people are engaged. Maybe they're sick of email too. I don't know. Maybe it's a retirement thing. I don't know.
You know what? Now that you say that, my dad loves text, and my dad's in his 70s. But he'll sign up for SMS marketing and actually have full-blown conversations with people.
I'm a big proponent of SMS. Like me, Andrew and I talk about it all the time where I'm just like, I don't even know where there's room for email anymore. When I've got 20 to 40% click-through rates on SMS, not open rates are 100%, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. It's super interesting, especially from the American Idol standpoint, because American Idol is all middle America, and it's all Facebook. Like, it is insanely, insanely Facebook heavy. We've done those marketing campaigns. We get more emails than SMS, but I'm curious if are you typically you're seeing it with older demo or older artists?
No.
No.
I have one artist who's 26-year-old country artist. His demo is older for sure, but he's a young artist and they love him. He's very American Idol. Which, by the way, for those of you listening, Maddie works with, like I said, 19. Is it 19 Entertainment? That's the name of the label,
yes,
right?
19.
Well, you talk about it. I want to hear more about 19 and
Yeah.
the relation to American
So
Idol.
basically, once the kids are on the show, the first option goes to 19. We are the record label from American Idol. We choose some, we get rid of some, but we have the first option. Sometimes we take them and they do a JV, like with Slater Neely. They just did a JV with Warner. So it's really interesting. It's a really cool concept. But the coolest thing about that show is we actually get to develop these kids and we get to work with them one-on-one. It's really interesting, though, I should say, because some of them get off the show and they have full visions, and some of them, this is their first time in the industry. You know, they got onto the show, they have crazy voices, crazy stories, and people get behind. I mean, Jamal Roberts, like, this kid is hitting a zeitgeist moment. Everything is lining up. He just got nominated for a Grammy. We didn't win it, but he got nominated 6 months off the show.
It's
insane.
I saw the photos of him at the Grammys, and that's amazing. And I mean, just getting a nomination is just massive.
Absolutely, and it's super, super fun.
And to be clear to everybody, he's the winner from last
Yes.
year.
He's absolutely the winner from last year. But, I mean, that's just one of 20 looks that he has coming up. And 6 months after the show, Grammy nom. It's insane.
I find it interesting because last year was the first time I got to work with you on a few different things with
Yeah.
American Idol, and I think growing up, I mean, because we grew up with that show, right? It's
Yep.
25 years old now. You just kind of assume that there's a very well traversed pipeline and way to do things, and when I was talking to you about it, it really showed me that we're all always figuring it out. That like the history of the show and the label, you're still contending with the same thing that we're contending with, which is how do we create enough noise, enough touch points? How do we create fans? It's still this same fight that the rest of us are fighting, when on the outside sometimes you just feel like, you guys have it all figured out. Like
Oh, yeah.
you're like, oh, we don't worry about that stuff. We have all the levers.
No, it's absolutely figuring it out. And it's also, especially with the American Idol stuff, it's so condensed. Like, we have 2 weeks. Basically, they not announced the top 7, and we have 2 weeks to put together full campaigns for 7 artists. Everything from content shoots to photo shoots to writing and recording the songs to A&Ring to making sure everything. And this, obviously, one of the guys that I work with, Nick, we spend basically those 2 weeks just busting our butts, and then we go right into CMA Fest, which is what you worked on with me last year.
The event, yeah. Then you have to put together,
And-
and that event was no joke. I was like
yeah.
really impressed with it.
Yeah, you're gonna do it again this year too with me, just so you know.
I'm down. Honestly, I think about last year, and it was like one of my favorite. Because I mean, this is my world 90% of the time, right? Like getting out into the real world and getting to do something
know.
is very nice.
It's so nice to be outside, even.
To be outside, to leave the office. I don't know, with Nashville, it's a coin toss on how the weather's going to be. No, that's awesome. Learning about that system was so interesting to me, just because of, I mean, even talking to Nick, and just to clarify, Nick works at 19 as well. He was telling me how even with the artists, he has to let them know that, like, hey, we still have to put in the work. Like, you come off stage at American Idol and now you're an artist and now this is your career. And it's not just something that happens on its own. You have to put in as much work as the kid who's just trying to make out of his hometown. Like, it's the same fight and the same battle.
It's the same fight, it's the same battle. And I think these kids too, because they are so used to the American Idol system and being kind of handheld through the process, it's also really scary for them. Because for the first time, a lot of these, this is the first time they put out singles. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, oh my God, last year, it took us forever to just get into everyone's like Spotify for Artists accounts, because a lot of these kids didn't even have.
They don't even,
They
yeah.
have no idea. And just a
They're
simple
so
thing. They're
green.
so green.
I will say I was impressed with how media trained some of them are. I was just like, holy cow, like, you guys know when to say, how to say it. They really run the gauntlet, come out the other end like completely changed. But I know how that affects so many artists, though. I mean, even when our artists get like small viral wins and then they come off of that high, it's almost devastating. And it's like, hey, a month ago you had no listeners and you're coming off this high and you have significant listeners. You're better off. But I can't imagine that, like, it's just so, it messes with their head, the whole show, the process, everything.
And we're there to help coach and guide and, help them process as much as we can. Because it's a shell shock for a lot of these kids. You go from 8 million people watching you to hopefully a lot still going to watch you. But
yeah, you got to fight for it after that.
You gotta fight for it. You have to fight for it. But it also, one of the cool things that I think is that it shows you still the power of TV and how powerful it really can be. Because these kids, I mean, if they're smart, they actually cultivate their fan base on that show and they take them with them. But it's hard. It is a very hard process, and it's a lot of work.
And what I noticed about and this is just me just kind of looking around and analyzing like I do at these things, the audience, it seems they discover music through shows like these. That they're not like a lot of us where they're online discovering acts. They're still very much, like you said, the power of TV is still very much alive, and that's how they discover culture.
Yep, you're absolutely correct.
And I gotta imagine it's a complex thing to try to, like, I mean, I always try to re-engage people. I've worked with a couple of artists that have come off these shows, and you go like, how can you re-engage all of these people and get them excited and interested?
Well, and then you talk about the kids that have been off the shows for years, and it's like, can we still cultivate that audience that they've been gone for years? Can we tap back into that, or do we even want to tap back into that, or do we want to build new things? It's a balancing act, I say.
Well, and it's funny too, because there's artists I listen to, and I almost forget that they started on these shows. Like you look at Morgan Wallen, and you forget that like that's where he started. Was it American Idol, or I forget whether it was that one or
No, I think it was another one. I don't think he was an American Idol.
it was America's Got Talent,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. But but that's the thing. It's like he's got his own career. I think Kelly Clarkson's the only one in my mind that will be like perpetually tied to one of those shows. I'm sort of curious though, and this isn't just in regards to like if we can get into marketing a little bit, just your experience, because your experience goes so much deeper than 19. I mean, that's the reason they have you on, is because you know your shit. But I'm always really curious, like what the up-to-date fundamental misunderstanding that most artists have when it comes to marketing.
I feel like the fundamental mistake is that they think, especially, this is going to sound so rude. I don't mean it in a negative way at all. But
That's okay. Our audience is used to us being mean and rude to them. So
I still feel like people think everything has to be perfect. And I think that perfection is not where beauty lies. And I don't think that's where building fans lie. I think being real and authentic and having something to say and being a little messy actually is where the beauty actually lies. Because if you don't have an opinion, if you don't have something to stand behind, and if the elephant in the room is if you don't have a good song, you're never going to make it.
yeah.
And I tell artists, it's not about this song, it's about what comes next. It's about how you're building it. It's about the story we build. It's about the world we build. And that is the most important thing to me, because I don't care if you have 1 fan or 10,000 fans. As long as that 1 fan is really engaged, or those 10,000 fans are really engaged, none of the other metrics matter. You want to build a fan base, and that's really what it boils down to. You have to actually have fans. So followers don't matter, streams don't matter. It's all about, can I reach you? Will you come to my shows? Will you buy my work? Will you be part of my world?
Well, and and I feel for these artists, because so many of them spend so much of their career just trying to get noticed that they don't know how to move into that next like fan building. And then they'll get to like, significant listeners, but they still can't sell tickets.
Yep.
And it's confusing, and I don't blame them, because their whole career is how do you make enough noise, but then you've got to like create this whole other machination on actually like engaging fans.
I mean, that's one part of it. The other part of it is like editorial. Editorial's dead. People don't really, you've been around for a minute. We've talked about this. Editorial's not what it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's not about that anymore. It's about literally building that core fan base that activates those algorithms, that builds out your career, and then reaching them and finding that. Oh, it's so annoying.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you that, as somebody else who runs an agency, when I talk about that stuff on calls, it's not what they're excited about. And you're like, this is the stuff, but it's like the stuff I'm excited about, because I'm like, I want to make you money, but they're like, how do I go viral? Which it's that's the top of the funnel. Like that's important too, but yeah, it's a tough sell.
Who needs to
and
wear
it's got to
that
be
shirt?
crazy with these kids.
Playlisting isn't a marketing strategy. Who was that? Was that Jay?
Oh yeah. That was
Yeah.
Jay Gilbert's shirt. And I used to
Yeah.
have, I need another one. I wore it until it literally like tore. And my wife was like, we're throwing the shirt away. That was like one of my faves. Yeah.
We need one that
That's-
says
yeah, if-
virality is not a marketing plan. That's the new one that we need.
Yes. He's going to be so mad, but that's a really good idea. I'm going to steal that.
100%. Virality is not a market. I could care less if you go viral. Could care less.
And the playlisting thing is funny too, because I've gotten a good rotation with my artists where they pretty much always get on editorials now. But I also work with that a caliber artist where it just kind of naturally happens, and I could care less. In fact, like in some cases, I feel like algorithmically it kills us. Like in order to make sure that the playlists don't hurt us, I actually run ads to autoplay the song. So when they click on the ad and they hear the song on the playlist, it actually increases the stats on the playlist. And that helps us overcome the detriment of people skipping through these playlists.
I think the Kiss of Death is New Music Friday, especially for a baby.
Yeah. Oh,
Is the Kiss of
if I have a small artist that gets on that, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that we're still talking about this 5 years later, 6 years later? You know what I mean?
It's evolved though.
Slightly.
I mean, playlisting was, but I was very done with it, even like when I was doing third-party playlisting, and that is might even how we connected. And that was a thing in 2018. I was already like, playlists suck. Like these suck as, and you know what's worse? And this is really coming from a green team is when they do the playlisting thing and it increases numbers like crazy, but then it goes down, right? Like, and it can come off and look even worse. And then they come to you and they're like, why aren't you getting numbers like that? And we're like, cause that's not real. Like that's not, you know. So let me ask you another question then on misunderstanding marketing. Where are they spending? Where are a lot of your clients wanting to spend money on things that are just a waste of time?
Oh, I mean, streams. I know that sounds ridiculous to some degree, but everyone's so concerned about the vanity metric of how many streams I got week 1, when the reality is it's not about week 1. It's about week 24 down the line. We've got to build. But everyone wants it front loaded. And I get the front loaded part. You can get things to move a little bit quicker, but I'm all about finding the right audience. If that takes a little bit longer, I mean, we might be working on a project soon that they want to front load
Hopefully,
it,
yeah.
you know? And we'll see. I'm low and slow. I like to start slow, build into it, see how it goes. But strategies are changing. Everything's changing. We were literally just talking about fan accounts. Last month, everyone was about seeding campaigns and faceless content. The month before that, it's always changing, and it's always, there's always ways to waste money, I think, if that makes sense.
Well, you even asked me, you're like, hey, what do you think about influencer marketing lately? And I think I said something you agreed with, which was like, why would you spend so much money on that when you can spend a fraction of that on accounts and trigger UGC?
Do you remember when
yourself?
we, obviously we won't
Oh,
say
yes.
that artist, but that
I
was,
still talk about that campaign.
dude,
We spent
150K
oh,
for Addison Rae. I think she was 60 or 70K is what they paid her.
that's actually wild because I remember another campaign. Oh, who was the girl back in the day that used the face motions, and that was like, and she was also a singer, an influencer, but she would like move her head and that was her whole thing. But she was the biggest influencer on, I get it, she's not even around anymore, but she was the biggest one and she only cost 12K and we got 2 million views on that video with the song. Didn't do shit for listeners. That's when it really, like, those influencer marketing campaigns are when I started thinking about like, oh, views don't mean shit if it doesn't make sense in the context of what people are watching. Simply putting a song on a video doesn't mean anything. You have to drive consumption. You don't, and you can't even do it with a call to action. You've got to do it in a clever way. But yeah, the money that was spent, and look, I have been a part of campaigns that have broken acts where you have a song and you're at like 1 million monthly listeners and you're like, you're plateau, you're stuck. That's when you spend 150K on a song, because that's when then you can tell it needs it. But so many back in the day, they wouldn't, like you said, front load it. They're like, we're going to spend 150K day one. I'm like, what are you doing?
I mean, but that was kind of fun to do back then.
As long as it wasn't our money.
Doing it. It wasn't.
I don't know
our money.
though. That's still, I'd be sweating. I'd be like, they're going to be mad at me. Like, that's why I'm like, no, I don't know. But yeah, that was wild times. I fight against, it's funny because I really, anytime somebody says influencer marketing, I'm like, nope, I don't want to do it. Unless I know I got a song.
Well, that's the thing. You do it in stages, right? You start with the low stuff, and if you see traction, okay, let's build a little bit more. Okay, let's build a little bit more.
So when do you, and this is always a question I get from artists, like, when do you know that the marketing isn't, like, it's failing because of bad marketing versus, and this is a friendly way to put it, they're not market ready, but the song not being good, right? Like, how do you, is there metrics that you look at that kind of determines that?
I look at the comments. That's where I find most of my answers is in the comments, because people tell you this is a great song, this is shitty marketing. I've seen those comments, or I've seen the complete opposite. Great marketing, shitty song. Look at the comments. They'll tell you what. That's the thing. People are not afraid to tell you what they think, and quite honestly, it's a good thing because it makes our jobs easier.
Yeah. My brother works in like what is it when you get like people in a room and they test items and stuff and give you feedback. I forget what the panels or something.
Yeah, something like that.
That is what we do every day, except it's with the whole world and it's basically free other than the time and cost of content itself. But I think that's the struggle that I always have is artists treat this thing like a slot machine, but it's not a slot machine. It's a science experiment. We're testing.
I actually love that. That's a good way to put it. It's not a slot machine. It's a science experiment. That's actually a really good way to put it.
Because what you just did matters if you analyze the engagement. And it is funny that people are like, hey, this song's great. What are you doing with the marketing? And that's why I'd like delete that comment before my client sees it. Like,
there was some really funny. Remember, because we had that idea with the toilet with him.
I still talk about that. I want to do more stuff like that. And just to give you guys a frame of reference, we did this idea where we're like, hey, this artist was a rap artist. He was kind of funny and goofy. That was his brand, irreverent. And we did a video of him sitting on the toilet. And it was like, why are you listening to my song on the toilet at 2 a.m.?
Yeah.
And I believe we ran an ad behind it for only like between like 12 and 3 a.m. or something like that. I don't even remember the metrics. I don't know if I liked that campaign a lot or if it actually did well.
It went insane.
did
I was
well.
getting hit up by everyone at every major about,
Really?
oh my God. I wonder if I still have the I bet I do. I should go dig for this one of those days. They were so funny. Everyone, because remember at the same time we did the big billboards too in Times Square and we were like running them parallel. Everyone was liking that one, but I got hit up by everyone about that toilet ad. Everyone. It was wild.
I see. And that's such a good point of like, people, you mentioned about being precious earlier, like being too thoughtful about every piece of content, but God, in this world, you've got to like think outside of the box. And if you've got an irreverent brand, there's so much you can do. But
I mean,
I don't know why we don't do stuff like that. Or I don't, at least. Like,
I wish I got to do stuff like that still. We loved it more,
I know. Well, and it's funny because I just did a piece of content with an artist where the first thing you see is he's coming out of a bathroom at a bar and he swings the door open and immediately zips up his pants and it went crazy. It's bathroom. We're all children and it's bathroom humor.
It's poop humor.
Like that's what it is. That's so funny.
Oh man.
Those were good times. That was like the Wild West of marketing. I look back at that when TikTok first dropped and you're like, you could do whatever you wanted and nothing mattered. There were no rules.
I mean, technically it is still like that. We're competing for attention. Literally. How do we get people to stop for a second and pay attention?
Yeah.
So the more fun you can have with it, I tell artists, if you don't like your content, if it's not fun and exciting for you, don't post it. Like if you can't find excitement in it, don't post it.
If you're enjoying this interview, there is 30 more minutes of it, but you need to be a premium member to hear it. In this 30 minutes, I really get into it with Maddie on her marketing strategies with her artists and what she sees working. So I want to get into something interesting this week, and it's this idea of how listeners, not even fans, just listeners of songs, use songs to create identity around themselves and how powerful it can be as a marketing device, though very hard to create. And I want to show you guys an example because I tried to describe this up front in our pre-show and everybody was like, what the fuck is he talking about? And it really boils down to user-generated content. And so let me pull up this video that we had go viral for one of our artists that sort of triggered this use around the song. It's actually a carousel, so it's 2 images. The lyric in the song is, just how long have I been gone? And it's a country song, mind you. And then...
But it's not Garth Brooks' How Long Gone.
No, it's a song called Country Road by the Lax. And they pin this place that they love being, right? So it's about, how long have I been gone from the place that I want to be? They've pinned it. In this case, it's Pineapple Willie's in Panama City Beach, which is funny to me that that's the place. But this is a young person. And it's mostly being used by young people. So they're using this sound over and over again. And basically, they're displaying that place that they want to be. And it's this idea that these people don't really care about the song outside of its utility to display their own lives and personality. But in that, what we're seeing, and I'll share some of the numbers, is a huge increase in streams on the song, right? So even though it's not about the song, people are hearing it enough to be like, oh shit, like this is a cool song. I'm gonna go at it. But I think the crazy thing and this as marketers drives us nuts is there's just almost no way of creating this. It's so difficult to pinpoint. So I'm kind of curious what you guys, if you've had experiences with similar organic UGCs, if that makes sense.
I mean, the first thing I will say is the second I see something that feels like it could be a trend, the first thing, my instinct is always to circle the wagons of who can you get to jump on and reply and do this trend, repost, pull a Matt Bacon, point a cigar at it, and show that it's happening, and make sure as many eyes see it as possible so that people start imitating it.
So yeah, that's been our discussion. It's like, cool, it's happening. Now we need to fuel it. But it's funny because so many people reach out to us being like, how did you do this? And we're like, we didn't start the fire, right? Like that's the hard part. That's nearly impossible.
And that's the thing that I think, like you have these services that can buy UGC like Preffy, Micro.wave, and Music Breaker. But what I've always wanted is just, I want people who can authentically imitate this stuff as it happens, that are users that you have a network where you can pay. And I've thought about building something like that 1,000,000 times.
I heard a quote at one point where it was like the like best, I'm gonna butcher it because I don't remember exactly, but it was something along the lines of in the past, the best way to like promote a song was to just try it, like put it in front of a bunch of eyeballs and certain people like it, then go check it out. And nowadays it's about how can I get as many other people as possible to make content about my song. So instead of trying to think about like how can I push my song myself, how can I get other people to push my song? And that's like how viral stuff gets viral today. But like it's one of those things where how do you artificially create a song in a stream of video content that's like, how can I manipulate's the wrong word, but in other words, manipulate people into promoting my song for me. And I don't know if like this might have just happened completely by accident, but like people have tried. It's like, I don't know, you make a song where the hook of the video is you're sharing your favorite book or something, and you're trying to encourage other people to make content sharing the book because in the song, maybe it says, I'm just reading this thing that I hate or something. I don't know. Right. And then you make this fun video about it. And like you could artificially create that, but how do you create one that like people are excited about? And it's different in every case because it's going to be different for every audience and every age group and every little box a person can tick.
There's kind of two things I see that make it work on if an artist is trying to do this kind of on their own. A big part is sort of the attractive character piece, right? Where it's like if people want to be like you and you are doing this particular trend because you are an attractive character to your audience for whatever reason, I've seen that kind of spur it organically where people were, or just the brand was an attractive character and people were like, oh, I think they're cool. Let me do kind of my own version of that thing. So I think there is like a coolness factor on the artist side that facilitates that. Although obviously, as we've seen, that's not needed. I'm sure people jumping on this trend, Dustin, don't know anything about the artist, but I would not be surprised if the first people to do it, obviously the first person to do that likes the song because they did it with that song. Right. So I don't know. I feel like there's always been like an attractiveness side of it where like, that's not going to happen for like a random band who is uncool. I think about like Kafune Teket, which like really blew up on TikTok. Like those guys like look and embody a lot of like Bushwick hipsterism. So it became very easy for that fan base to kind of tap into it.
Well, I will say this. The irony of this is that the band has been around for 20, 25 years. They're older guys. They're in their mid 40s. In fact, they just put out a song about like, remember when it was like when we were 20 something years old. And so it's an older band and they're fairly popular in country, but not huge. And their audience, I mean, we've been struggling for years trying to garner a younger audience. And then here comes along this trend where they're using a song of theirs and it's almost entirely young people. And so funny enough, they're not hip at all. But I think what's interesting though, and my big takeaway, and I forget this, it's like, if you're going to try to do this you know, whether through an influencer campaign or a fan account, this idea of like, let's not just get somebody to dance to a song. Let's get them to associate their entire personality with this song.
Even the story you just said, Dustin, about the artist's new song is about the fact that they're 40. Remember this thing from when we were 20? That sounds so much like it could be this exact thing that they're having with this.
True.
Because like they could make content showing like it could be as stupid as like what I do in the summer now versus what I did back then. And it's like showing them like, I don't know, going to the beach with their kids and then back, it shows a flashback and they're like, I don't know, they flew to somewhere where it's cold and went skiing or something. And then like that just started a trend of all these people who were like older reminiscing about their childhood or 20s or whatever it is. And like that just sounds so, I don't know what it's not memeable, but like UGC-able.
Well, I was telling their team too. I was like, you know, 22-year-olds also have nostalgia for when they were in high school. So nostalgia works at all levels. And even this idea, this concept around Country Road is also nostalgia. Like, hey, remember that time in Panama City at Pineapple Willie's? You know, but I think it's what's frustrating is that I have been a part of many campaigns who have attempted to do things like this. And services, Jesse, you mentioned starting a service. Services like Jenny exist, right? With this idea that you're going to create a lot of touch points. You put an idea together. But I'll tell you, I have been a part of so many of those. And it's so hard. It is almost always luck. It's crazy how difficult it is to manually do these things.
Well, and for me, one of the frustrations with influencer campaigns a lot of the time, and maybe I just have bad ideas for influencer campaigns, but one of the frustrations I've seen for myself and other people is that very frequently it feels forced.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like we'll have something cool, but like if it's forced, it's forced.
Well, I think one of the most interesting, so I go back to Lola Young Messi, which obviously was like one of the biggest breakout hits of last year, nominated for Best New Artist at the Grammys. And what we saw over and over again is that like this started with a UGC thing. She was pushing this song forever. 9 months of repeatedly going, while I'm putting out new singles, I'm going to keep making videos of this. And then finally some UGC comes through. But what do they actually get to do is the girlfriend or wife of the executive at her label makes a thing with Jake Shane, who's one of the biggest influencers, and then top down it trickles down is that people imitate the big influencers. And one of the things I think that you always have to be picking in these campaigns is that the problem with you're discussing, Matt, which is a real problem, is that when you get the low level people is that they can be very bad at it and they can kind of miss the mark on what to do. But then the high level influencers who are very good at seeing every detail of everything do it, and it doesn't always trickle down.
We did a Bella Porch influencer campaign once, $12,000. I did not want to do this, by the way. $12,000 for her to do her like head bop to the song. And that video did 8 million views and that it just didn't pick up. Right. And I think the campaign maybe could have been a little bit more interesting, but at the time head bobbing was kind of enough. And it's so easy to be like, well, that was $12,000 gone and it did nothing.
I have never seen a Jenny campaign be worth it. And I will say, not
Call
not
them
to
right
throw-
out there. No,
not to throw
that's
too much
be
shade on a
honest.
specific company, but like the nice thing I will say is like they are transparent about it when you ask them. They'll be like, there's like an X% chance you're gonna hit like your song will do this. There's an X% chance it'll do this. There's an X% chance it just kind of flops and gets a bunch of views. So like one of my clients specifically, they gave him like kind of numbers. You have this percentage chance to do this. And who knows if those are real or not, but I think the handful of people I know that have done like big, like 5,000, 10,000 plus things with them, it's never been like that helped. It's been like, yeah, we got a bunch of views. Yay.
But have they had the data to back it up? Because I will say campaigns I have done, I only do when I'm seeing metrics that tell me that it's worth doing. So high save rates, lots of add to playlists, stream per listener. When we start seeing that or UGC, then we're kind of like, oh, there's something. Like I would do a campaign, you know, if this trend, this Country Road trend is pretty big at the point where it doesn't make sense to do a campaign. But if I saw a few of these and I was like, okay, to me, that's an indicator. And I've seen those campaigns do well.
Yeah, but that's also just that thing of like, what does your audience want, and then giving it to them.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, okay, like the audience likes this thing, we will super serve it to more people. You know, it's the same reason why like a sales campaign, if your predicted sales are less than 200 units, a sales campaign probably won't help you. If your predicted sales are 500 units, a good sales campaign can get that up to 750 pretty easily. You know, like you have to make sure the audience wants the thing. In the example I gave, it's a CD or vinyl, but in your example, it's this specific trend. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. We're trying to get this to go as far as it can. So please start a conversation with a musician friend by sending it to them.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing on your favorite podcast app. If you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss a single upload every single Tuesday. And if you could rate us on Apple and Spotify, it helps us a ton. Thanks so much.